Pesachim Perek Chet Mishna Vav. We are going to talk about more people if they can bring the Pesach sacrifice or cannot bring the Pesach sacrifice. So let's continue. Ha'onen, somebody who's an onen. What's an onen? Mi shemet lo echad mikruvav, somebody who's a close relative passed away. When a person, close relative passed away, hu chayav lidabel alehem. He has to be on mourning for them. Now, he's not burying him, because if he would be burying him, he would be tameh for 7 days. We're talking about either before or the guy died in Singapore, you're in Pakistan.
Oh,
you know?
I see.
Or whatever, or he died in a different city. You just got the news.
Okay.
Or you're not going to the cemetery for some reason, but you're in onen. Kol yom hamita nikra onen. So the entire day that the person is going to be buried, the person is called an onen. And this is onen min Torah. It's a onen from the Torah. So therefore, a person who's an onen, even though he doesn't become impure, he's not impure, he didn't go to the cemetery, he didn't go to the funeral. Yeah? So in that day, the day of the death, is called an onen. And therefore the Torah says, asur lo le'echol bekodashim. He's not allowed to eat sacrifices. שנאמר בווידוי המעשר, because it says in the וידוי of the מעשר, if you remember, לא אכלתי בעוני ממנו. I didn't eat when I was an onen. I wouldn't eat when I was an onen from it. It means that you're not allowed to eat sacrifice on the day of the death of a close relative. אבל בלילה שלאחר יום המיטה, but the night after, immediately the night after, אינו אונן אלא מדרבנן. The only way he's an onen is from the rabbis, not from the Torah.
Why? What if he didn't bury his man?
No, he's talking about they did bury. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's only an onen from the Rabbanan. ולא העמידו חכמים את דבריהם במקום מצוות אכילת הפסח. And mitzvah דרבנן, we're not going to push away the Pesach sacrifice for a mitzvah דרבנן. ומכאן מי שנעשה אונן בערב פסח, so here somebody who became an onen on the 14th of Nisan, ראוי לאכול בלילה את פסחו. He's going to be allowed to eat the Pesach sacrifice at night. So he's fine. והמפקח את הגל. Another thing, we see this happening a lot now in Turkey. There was earthquakes. All the houses went down. This is exactly what happens in the old time. They didn't have rebars in their houses. You know, when there was an earthquake in Israel, all their houses used to come down. So, המפקח את הגל, somebody who's digging for dead people under such a collapse of a building, המפנה בערב פסח גל אבנים שנפל על אדם, that he removes the stone on a person that, a house that fell on the person, כדי להוציאו מתחתיו. He's doing it on the 14th of Nisan in order to take the person out. ואין יודעים אם ימצאנו חי או מת. And he didn't get to him yet. But it's very possible that the guy is already dead there. And this is the 14th of Nisan. So the question is, he's been digging now the whole day long. When it comes night, they stop digging. But he says, hey, I'm going to come.
Count you? No.
Or the question is, can we count him, shecht on him, or we can't shecht on him? The Pesach sacrifice. Yeah? אבל כל זמן שלא מצאו מת, הרי הוא בחזקת טהרה. It says, as long as you don't know, maybe he's going to be found alive. We know there's some people, maybe they're going to be alive, and therefore that person is not impure. So therefore you can shecht on him. Yeah? And as long as you don't know, you can shecht on him, and he can at night go and eat the Pesach sacrifice. וכן, and also, מי שהבטיחו להוציאו מבית האסורים לפני הפסח. Somebody is in jail, but his release date is on the 14th. Good question. כן מי שהבטיחו להוציא מבית האסורים לפני הפסח, before Pesach, not on the night. On the 14th, he's going to go out. But he's going to go on the 14th out when it's going to be too late for him to go and shecht. So somebody's going to shecht for him. You know, like the group.
Join in the group.
He can join in a group that somebody shecht. That's the question. אף על פי שבית האסורים היה חוץ לחומת ירושלים, even though he's outside of the city walls, ואם לא יקיימו הבטחתם, לא יכלו להביא עליו את הפסח לאכלו שם עמו. And if they're not going to do in other words, you can't take the Pesach sacrifice to him, you need to bring him inside. So still you're allowed to. והחולה והזקן שהם יכולים לאכול כזית מן הפסח. Another example is somebody who's in an old age home. You know, it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. He's like 106. But he can still eat a kazais. If he cannot eat a kazais, if he's not capable of eating the measurement amount, we can shecht for him. But he is capable. But he's capable now. But you're not sure he's going to be capable at night. It's one of those guys. You know? Now I know he can. So he says, are you allowed to? Yes, he can count on him. Kol elu shochatim alehen. All this you're allowed to slaughter the Pesach sacrifice, even though at that time they're like wishy-washies. Et הפסח ibnei chavura acher. You're allowed to do it as long as they're amongst other people who are normal. You're allowed to. בעניין אונן כותב הרמב"ם, when it comes to אונן, the Rambam writes, במה דברים אמורים about an אונן? What are we talking about? שמת לו המת אחר חצות היום. That the dead person passed away after midday. What does it mean? שכבר נתחייב בקורבן פסח. Because when after midday, then the obligation to bring this Pesach sacrifice kicks in. Before midday, it doesn't kick in. You don't have an obligation yet. אבל אם מת לו המת קודם חצות, but if you become an onen before midday, אין שוחטים עליו. You don't have to shecht on him. אלא יידחה לשני. But he's going to get pushed off to the second. But in other words, if Pesach obligation came first and then the death, then you shecht. But if the death came before Pesach obligation, so what are you talking about? You have the second sheni, Pesach sheni.
Yeah, that's why we have the Titmal Nefesh.
Yeah. And over here he's not tameh, but he's an onen. He's an onen. ואם שחטו עליו וזרקו אדם, what happens if it happened in the morning? Yeah? Or the dead person, it happened in the morning, yeah. טובל ואוכל לערב, he's going to go to the mikveh, and he's going to allowed to be eating in the evening. If he made a mistake, in other words, he should have done it in Pesach Sheni, but he's still allowed if he did Pesach Rishon, we still allow him to take it Pesach Rishon. He should do it in the second.
He's only onen, that's why.
Because at the time he's eating it, he's not an onen. At the time he's going to be eating the Pesach sacrifice, he's not an onen. He's not an onen anymore. He's only the rabbis.
Because it's the evening.
Yeah. So, al kulan ein shochatim alehem bifnei atzman. But in all these examples, if you've got a bunch of guys in jail, for example, they cannot do a chavura by themselves. Yeah, they have to join each individual one to another normal group. שאם החבורה כולה עוננים, because if the whole group is all עוננים, or the whole group were digging for a dead person, or digging for to save a person, או מפקחי גל, או חבושים בית האסורים, or they were all in jail, שהבטיחו להם להוציאה משם, או חולים וזקנים, or they were old or sick, אסור לשחוט עליהם את הפסח. You're not allowed to bring the Pesach, to shech the Pesach on them. Why? שמא יביאו את הפסח לידי פסול, because they might bring the Pesach, the whole Pesach sacrifice, to become not good. שכן באונן, because in an אונן, יש חשש שמא יטמא למתו מתוך טרדתו. Of course, you have to worry that he's going to bury his dead person. He's going to touch him. He's not just going to give it to Hever Kadisha. He's going to touch him. ובמפקח את הגל, and somebody who's digging for a person that was under a collapse, שמא אם מצא תחתיו מת ויטמא. He might actually be impure. ובחבוש בבית האסורים, and somebody who's in jail, שמא לא יקיימו את הבטחתם. Yeah, we said it's going to get 5 o'clock, but sorry, the guards didn't come yet. Whatever, for the next shift. And therefore he's not going to come out. things can happen. וכגון, and this is an example, שהיה חבוש בבית האסורים של גויים. If he was jailed in a jail of non-Jews, then we cannot rely on it. But he was in jail of Jews, we can rely. Because they know there is such a thing as jail, even by Jews. Usually there isn't, you're right. Usually there's no such thing as jail by Jews, you're right. But you're going to see soon. וחולה, is he going to say it over here? No, he's not going to say it, so I'm going to tell you. Even in that time, Jews don't have jail. I mean, in the old time, there's no such thing in jail, except a couple of things. For example, two main things that we used jail for throughout generations, even in the time of the Mishnah, even in the time of King David. Somebody doesn't want to give a get. Yeah? It says, you give him lashes and he still doesn't want it. Okay, you put him in jail. Okay, when you'll decide to give a get, we'll take you out of jail. Or he owes somebody money. And he hid it. I don't know where the money is. I'm not going to give you the money. He has some gold buried somewhere. I'm not giving you the money back. And the judge says, you owe him money. I'm not giving you back. What are you going to do? So the judge says, okay, don't worry. Here, you're in jail. When you decide to give the money back, then you can go. So these two examples, for example, even in us, even in the old time, there was jail for. But not like here in America as a punishment. It wasn't a punishment. Until you'll do what we need you to do. It's almost like after the judge said the ruling and you refuse, it's like lashes. Enforcing that's right. It's not as a punishment. Yeah. So there is a case of jails also by us. He doesn't say it over here, but וחולה וזקן, and a sick person and an old person, שמא לא יוכלו לאכול אפילו כזית. So a beit zkenim, that right now they can all eat a kezayis, you don't know sure in the evening what's going to happen with them. I'm not talking about a hospice. In a hospice, now they can eat, but in the evening, who knows what can happen in the evening. לפיכך, אם אירע בהם פסול, therefore, if happened in them something that became impure, ששחטו עליהם בחבורת אחרים, that everybody else was kosher, ואירע בהם אחר כך פסול על ידי הדברים שמנהלים, פטורים מלעשות פסח שני. In all these cases, they don't have to do Pesach Sheni, because their sacrifice has been shechted. They just couldn't do it. Yeah. לפי שבשעת השחיטה וזריגת הדם היו ראויים לאכול אכילת הפסח. In other words, at the time that the Pesach sacrifice took place, they could have eaten it. For other reasons, they weren't able to. חוץ מן המפקח בגל. Everything is except the guy who's digging to save people. אם יראה שנמצא האדם תחתיו מת, הרי הוא חייב לעשות פסח שני, because then you find out that he was always impure. From the morning he was impure. He just didn't know it. So in other words, when they shechted the Pesach sacrifice, he was impure. He just didn't know that he was impure, so then he has to go to Pesach Sheni. שהוא טמא מתחילתו, because...
Pesach that he shecht is no good.
Yeah, it wasn't for him. שהוא טמא מתחילתו, he was always impure. לפני שחיטת הפסח כבר טמא היה. He was already impure before the Pesach sacrifice. שהרי העיל על המת משעה שהתחיל לפקח על הגל. Because he was standing on all the rocks and the dead person was underneath it. בגמרא מבואר, the Gemara explains, what are we talking about? דווקא אם הגל היה עגול. We're talking about if the building collapsed, the whole building collapsed, and he was standing on top. But what about if it was a long, like 50 buildings right next to each other, and he would start to dig over here, yeah? So then maybe he's not impure, because you don't know by the time that he got to the guy, maybe he was pure on the other hand. In other words, it took him a long time to walk all those things. You just don't know when it happened. דווקא אם הגל היה עגול, we're talking about only if it was a round thing, שוודאי אליו מתחילה, then for sure he was on top of him in the beginning. אבל אם הגל היה ארוך, but it was a long collapse, הועיל ואפשר שבשעת השחידה עדיין לא הועיל, if it is possible that at the time of the slaughtering, he still didn't get to that place where the dead person was, וטהור היה, it's still possible that he was pure. הילקח פטור מלעשות פסח שני, therefore he will not be obligated to do the second Pesach.
Take a chance, and if you're bet asurim, and you say, no, I want to do the Pesach, and they didn't release you, and they shecht on you, you lost your Pesach. You can do Pesach Sheni, and you didn't eat the korban. That's what it looked like.
I am not sure. From the beginning, when it started to say this, I wasn't sure. I agree with you on one hand, but it says patur milasot Pesach Sheni. It doesn't say asur. It says you're not obligated. Maybe I don't know what it means. Yeah, I don't know what it means. Yeah, I don't know. But it looks to me like you're right. Yeah, it looks to me like you're right, but the language bothers me. So you understand what all it says? It says it's not obligated to bring the Pesach Sheni. It doesn't say that you're not allowed to. So I'm not quite sure how to. Yeah, but I think that you're right, but I'm not 100% sure. It always bothered me from the beginning the way they used it. Okay.